Hi and welcome to applications.com. In this demonstration, we are going to show you how the stocking process works and how we did the Java coding for stocking process. Okay, let's begin. First of all, I will give you an overview of how the stocking process is working. Stocking process has two main steps as data input step and the stocking authorization step. In the data input step, the user has to select the product which the user going to add into the inventory. Then user has to enter other information. And finally, this stocking entry has to be authorized by a supervisor in the IT operations department. After the authorization, the item will be available for a stock out process. Means first we have to add the item into the head office warehouse location, and then we can stock out it into a branch or a department within the organization. According to this drop-down list, we can select the product and then we can mention its quantity, notes if available, and then the stocking location as head office. Okay, now we will see how we did the Java coding for these two pages. First, we have to select the product type name as computer. This is to enhance the system so that in future we can add other product types like stationery or furniture and so on. So when you are developing a system, you should keep those to enhance the system in future. Means when you are doing the system design, at that time you have to plan these kind of things. So when you are doing the programming part, it will be easy for you. However, as you can see, this method returns a vector. So what is a vector? The vector class implements a global array of objects. Like an array, it contains components that can be accessed using an integer index. However, the size of a vector can grow or shrink as needed to accommodate adding and removing items after the vector has been created. Let's see how we use this vector element to display product type names in the JSP page. By using a for loop, we have opened the vector element called type list, and then by using the object name called pty or product type, and by using its getters, we have displayed the product name within a drop-down list. So for the time being, as I told you before, here in this drop-down list, only computer product type will be displayed. So when the user selects the product type, it will make a page submit, and the product ID will pass into another JSP page called stk stockin00.jsp page. So as you can see from the previous JSP page, the parameter product type ID is passing into this method called search product name, and this method also returns a vector. Okay, let's see the method search product names. As you can see, this is a public method and returns a vector element. So this method accepts an int parameter called product type ID. Here we use the connection as a MySQL JDBC connection. This is the SQL statement as I showed you in this slide. And we pass that SQL statement into the prepare statement method. This is a Java predefined method. After that, it will execute the SQL statement and produce a result set. Since this result set is having more than one row of data, we have made a while loop to open it. So from the while loop, we assign those table row data into the product object by the use of its setters. Finally, we add the product object into the vector, so we can return the vector back to the JSP page. Here, pro name code is the vector name. So you can see that we open the vector by using a for loop, and we have assigned the product ID as the value of the option field. So when the user selects the product name, the product ID will be passed into another JSP page called stk.stockin.jsp. So as you can see, we use a submit form JavaScript function to submit the form with the parameter product ID into another JSP page called stk.stockin.jsp. 1 minute. I am using JavaScript here. So what is the difference between Java and JavaScript? Let's see for a moment. Difference between Java and JavaScript. The JavaScript programming language developed by Netscape is not part of the Java platform. JavaScript does not create applets or standalone applications. In its most common form, JavaScript resides inside HTML documents and can provide levels of interactivity to web pages that are not achievable within simple HTML. Java is an object-oriented programming language, while JavaScript is an object-oriented programming scripting language. Java creates applications that run in a virtual machine or browser, while JavaScript code is run on web browser only. Java code needs to be compiled, while JavaScript code are all in text. We can use JavaScript to make validations within a JSP page. As I showed you in here, we have made few JavaScript functions to validate the description length, quantity and location. Okay, in our next slide, we will talk about the next step of the stocking process, which is entering product details and configuration details. After selecting the stocking location as the head office, you can fill up the other details like reference number, serial number, brand, model, warranty periods, etc. After this, it's time to enter configuration details like RAM details, hard disk details, VGA, whether DVD is available or not, processor capacity, those kind of information. So you can add configuration types one by one. Suppose if you want to delete one of them, you can do it very easily by just clicking the delete icon. So up to now, we have entered product details and its configuration type details. Let's see how this stocking product details JSP page and HTML and Java code in our next slides. Here you can see we have imported several Java classes and packages. Then you can see the JSP use bean objects. If we talk about OBJ stocking data bean object and its attributes, we have matched those attributes with parameter IDs in the JSP page. For example, the attribute name is PROID, product ID, and the parameter name is PRD ID. And another example, the attribute name is QTY, quantity, and the parameter name also QTY. Like that, we have matched those attributes with the parameters. As you can see, when user clicks on the save button, all the assigned data will pass into the insert stock method. So this method has three parameters. First one is stocking data object parameter. Second one is the user profile object parameter, and the third one is stock in auth data object parameter. After successfully executing this insert method, then the page is redirecting to another JSP page called stk stock in config types new.jsp page. For this, it uses response.send redirect. So what is this response.send redirect? In case of send redirect, request is transferred to another resource, to different domain or different server for further processing. When you use send redirect, container transfers the request to client or browser, so URL given inside the send redirect method is visible as a new request to the client. In case of send redirect call, all the request and response objects are lost because it's treated as new request by the browser. In address bar, we are able to see the new redirected address. It's not transparent. Send redirect is slower because one extra round trip is required, because completely new request is created and old request object is lost. Two browser requests required. In send redirect, if we want to use with data, then we have to store the data in session or pass along with the URL. This is the in-stock method. You saw this method in a previous slide. Here you can see there are three method parameters. First one is stock in data, second one user profile, and the third one is stock in auth data. We have defined the SQL insert statement in a string argument. Then we pass it into the prepare statement method as a method parameter. So what is this prepared statement object? This is a special type of statement which derived from statement class. This is used for sending SQL statement into the database. The main feature of a prepared statement object is that, unlike a statement object, it is given a SQL statement when it is created. The advantage to this is that in most cases, this SQL statement is sent to the DBMS right away where it is compiled. As a result, the prepared statement object contains not just a SQL statement but a SQL statement that has been precompiled. This means that when the prepared statement is executed, the DBMS can just run the prepared statement SQL statement without having to compile it first. Here in this prepared statement object, as shown in this slide, we have supplied values for the prepared statement parameters. Okay, let's see furthermore about this insert stock method from the next slide. Here you can see that we pass user group code and task code into another method called getNextUserLevel. This is to retrieve the next user's group ID. So why we need next user's group ID? Because the stocking process is having dual authorization, means after entering an item into the current stock, the IT supervisor has to authorize it. Then only it will hit into the current stock quantity. So in order to maintain the authorization levels and details in a log table, we have used another insert method called insert stk auth log. Means basically we have used additional two methods inside this insert stock method. One more thing we would like to mention, that is about finally block. What is this finally block? The finally block always executes when the try block exists. This ensures that the final block is executed even if an unexpected exception occurs. But Finally is useful for more than just exception handling. It allows the programmer to avoid having cleanup code accidentally bypassed by a return, continue, or break. Putting cleanup code in a finally block is always a good practice, even when no exceptions are anticipated. That is why in our code we use the finally block to close the prepare statement and MySQL database connection. Next, we will talk about the pending authorization. This is the end of stock in process part 1. Thank you for watching.